Clear air, clean water, strong bridges, safe roads, and life-saving miracles. Engineers are innovating the solutions that will build a stronger American future. But tax changes are stifling the spark of innovation, holding back the dreamers, doers, and builders from the discoveries that will reshape our future. Tell Congress, fix the R&D tax and promote research and development. Because when we fuel the fire of innovation, we light the way to a brighter tomorrow.
Welcome to Engineering Influence Podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, and we are kicking off 2024, the end of a very, very busy 2023, and really looking forward to an even busier 2024 with the election ahead of us, of course, and to talk about really wrapping up the end of the year and looking at what we've accomplished, and then, of course, pivoting to the beginning of the new year. Very pleased to be joined by Steve Hall, Executive Vice President at ACEC and the head of our advocacy efforts, and really just to kind of encapsulate the look ahead of what we all have in store for us from the advocacy perspective, what Congress might or may not do, and of course that big looming question of who's going to win the White House at the end of the year. So, Steve, we're coming off of a very productive, well, for us, I think productive year. Maybe in general, Washington, not as productive as it could be, but for us, we're coming off some accomplishments. So what will you have to talk about for 2023?
Sure, Jeff. Thank you. And great to be with you all today. Congress did push a lot of unfinished business into 2024. But they were able to get a few things done in 2023 and some things that, quite frankly, we've been working on for many, many years. There was language included in the Defense Authorization Bill that would lift the cap on design fees. For many decades now, that has been capped at 6% of construction costs. The new legislation lifts that cap to 10%. Not a perfect fix, at a time when, qualifications-based selection is how firms are procured. There shouldn't be any cap on design fees, but this is a step in the right direction, and this will give our member firms that do work for the Corps of Engineers, for the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, a little bit more room to negotiate better fees and a little bit closer to the value that they're bringing to the client. So this is a big step forward. We worked in partnership with some of our member firms, one particular big firm, in getting this done, and we're very pleased to see that it got done. We were able, through the regulatory process, working with the Biden administration and our member firms, secure an exemption for A&E services in a regulatory initiative that the administration launched to require project labor agreements on federally funded projects out there. And we were able to get an exemption from that. This is something similar we were able to get during the Biden administration. And really, the concern is that engineering and engineering firms need to be separate from this. They're not. They shouldn't be part of the collective bargaining process. Yeah. Their role is to design the facility, whatever is being built, but also be the advocate for the owner in terms of making sure that it's being constructed to design standards and playing a number of roles, and really needs to maintain its independence from other rules that normally govern a construction site. So we were pleased that the Biden administration went in the same direction as the Obama administration, and that was announced really in the closing weeks of 2023.
That came in actually right at the end. Obviously, about the last week of the year.
Yeah, exactly. We were able to get significant reforms to the NEPA process, the environmental review process that our firms have to go through working for their clients. And it's typically engineering companies that are doing these assessments and EISs and things of that nature. And so they live daily, some of the problems and the inefficiencies and the delays that these well-intentioned rules sometimes impose on project delivery. So there were a number of things included in the debt ceiling deal that was agreed to and signed into law the middle of the year last year. And one of the incentives to get that legislation passed was the inclusion of these NEPA reforms. So we were very, very pleased with the passage of that legislation. And then we were able to get some language, and it's not completely done. Congress needs to take final action on the spending bills for 2024, but we were able to get language into one spending bill related to Ukraine reconstruction. We're all hoping and praying that the war in Ukraine comes to an end in 2024. And when that happens, there is going to be a substantial reconstruction process.
Yes, it will.
In the country, and we want very much to ensure that is organized, and that the U.S.'s role in shaping that reconstruction is organized, and it just makes sense. And then what the role is for the private sector and the engineering industry. We expect America's engineering industry to play a significant role in the reconstruction effort. And so working with Congress, we want to make sure that we have a seat at the table as that strategy is designed. And then we also were able to get language. We've been dealing with the problem of the FAR credits clause for several years now. As it applies to PPP loans. And, we've gotten legislation through the House of Representatives 3 times to fix the problem, only to be stymied in the Senate by pretty much one senator. We launched a parallel effort this past year to see if there's something else that will get through Congress that will help on implementation and help firms and states that are still in the process of implementation to try to mitigate and lessen the impact on small firms. And the Senate Transportation Appropriations Subcommittee included language that we submitted. They modified it a bit, but the intent of the language is to, again, ensure that as Federal Highways works with state DOTs to implement this mandate, that they do it in a way that tries to minimize the impact on small firms. And so we've got, we still have, issues in New York State and others where this is a problem. And we're hoping this language will, it's not going to solve the problem, but we're hoping, going forward, it'll be part of the solution.
It's an important step in the solution.
Correct.
Again, it goes to show that, with all these big issues going on that people hear about in the news, whether it's, the bigger issues of immigration or the bigger issues of the government shutdown or what have you, that, the activities of government continue, and there are a lot of opportunities for action on the advocacy front, and that we've been very successful, if not through, the direct legislative avenue, taking the regulatory approach and making important changes that will make doing business as an engineer much more easy in 2024.
And I tell you, some of these issues that we won on in 2023, we've talked about them a little bit, but they've been kind of sleepers. They've been things that we've been working on for a long time that finally came to fruition. We made a lot of progress on issues in 2023. The House passed a multi-year reauthorization of FAA programs that fund airport construction projects. Still working, in the Senate to try to get their version of the bill done. This is an issue that carries over to 2024, but still good progress. And the fact that the House, which is typically the place where it's toughest to get legislation through, the fact that they passed a bill with strong bipartisan support, it's reminiscent of how infrastructure is typically handled. You can certainly remember that from your Bill Schuster days. That's what we want, and that's the way it should be. They're hung up on some issues in the Senate, but we think this is something that is a good opportunity for getting done early in 2024.
Well, especially given the fact that, this is Chairman Graves' signature.
It's his legacy.
This is his legacy.
Yeah.
So in the House, it's a certainty that he's going to want to push something through. This is every chairman who's exiting has to have a signature piece of legislation or his mark on the work.
He's a pilot. Yeah, this is what he wants. Yeah.
So anybody out there who's looking at the ways to influence the process, look to the Senate. and talk to your senators and try to get them on board, because the House is going to be motivated in 2024 to make sure this happens.
Yeah, and we're confident this is something that can get done.
Yeah.
So hoping that by end of first quarter 2024, check that box. It's gone to the White House. We've been working, we've got some legislation. We've been working on the regulatory side on some things. We've been working with AASHTO and the state DOTs on a kind of a regulatory framework on the implementation of, 3D design plans and digital documents.
Yeah.
And been working on this for several years. Again, another one of those long lead issues that is getting closer and starting to get implemented out into the states. And it's still a work in progress, but something that we've been heavily involved with. We've got some regulations that have been put out there for comment on immigration. And at least one provision of the proposed regulation embraces an idea that we put forward to the Biden administration. We've been dealing with workforce challenges, and ACEC stood up a workforce committee recently, and we have new volunteer leaders for that committee. But there's so many elements to the workforce challenge facing the industry. Some of it is in the public policy space. Some of it is in education and just how we talk about the profession.
Absolutely.
But in the public policy space, we've been spending a lot of time, trying to convince Congress to lift the cap on H-1B visas and make some changes to the green card process to make more of them available as sort of the short-term fix on immigration. That's been tough. I mean, getting Congress to agree on an immigration strategy has been difficult, and so much of the attention has been on the southern border and really border security. Unfortunately, lawmakers aren't really thinking broader about immigration and immigration as a component of a competitiveness strategy.
Yeah.
And that's really what they need to think about it, because we need people, we need smart people. And, lifting the cap, lifting some of the restrictions to keep those smart people, out of the country is something that they need to revisit. But while we wait for Congress to wrestle with that question, we put forward a bunch of recommendations to the administration on things that they could do just through the president's regulatory authority to streamline the process, to make it more favorable to the engineering industry. One of those ideas, like I said, the administration grabbed onto and included in this most recent regulatory announcement, and it has to do with the lottery system for H-1Bs. There's entities out there, and these immigration brokers, so to speak, that kind of game the system.
Very predatory.
Yeah, and they're putting people into multiple different portals as part of this lottery system, and it just makes it harder for the legitimate businesses like our members to put forward candidates with a reasonable expectation that they might be given a visa. So we put forward a recommendation on that. The administration has included it. That regulatory announcement is in a public comment period, and so we're going to certainly express our strong support for going that direction. And we're also going to take the opportunity to remind the administration there's a bunch of other good ideas that they ought to do. And quite frankly, ideas that kind of put us higher on the priority list. I mean, when you think about all of the work that needs to be done that's been funded through IIJA and the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act, this industry is critical to the success of those initiatives. We need engineers. We need talent. And I think the immigration policy should reflect that. So that's going to be, I think, a key part of our messaging to the White House, to the president and his team about how they can better address that. We've launched, we started partnerships in 2023, and those will continue in 2024 with the Corps of Engineers on updates to their design manual on levee design and levee safety, as well as a larger partnership manual, really, with the Corps that will govern the relationship between the Corps of Engineers and its private sector partners. That process is kind of in midstream right now, And we've got a number of members that are actively engaged in advising the Corps and developing this playbook. Um, uh, and we needless to say, have made wonderful progress in 2023, and it carries over on R&D tax, the 5-year amortization mandate, that media campaign that we launched in the fall, and you were certainly a big part of that. Having the approval from the board, I mean, that just provided such a huge boost, to the advocacy program and just elevating the awareness among lawmakers around the country as to what this is doing to firms, of all sizes. But honestly, I mean, some of the most compelling stories, and you've heard many of them, are from the very small firms.
Absolutely.
And the fact that this, for many of those, has become such an existential challenge. So we have boosted, as a result of the grassroots efforts from our members, from that media campaign, we've boosted the number of co-sponsors in the House and Senate on those pieces of legislation. And we've had some good meetings with the new Speaker of the House in recent weeks. He seems to be on board. He understands the problem. He understands what it's doing to business around the country, and he wants to get a fix passed. Right. Our chair-elect Gary Raba was with him earlier this week. In fact, he's making a swing through Texas right now to visit the border, and Gary met with him and talked to him about this issue. And he sounded guardedly optimistic that this could be something that gets done early in 2024, and had some ideas on legislative vehicles to attach this fix to. So we've still got a lot of work to do on this, Jeff. But I tell you, we made great progress in 23. The goal here is to get it done as early in 2024 as possible, and I think we're poised to do that.
And the campaign that's still ongoing. I mean, we're continuing to place editorials from business leaders, from engineering firm owners. 31 editorials in 6 states so far. I mean, we've had a potential audience that's close to 1 million. I mean, it's getting up there for getting the visibility on the issue. And really encourage everybody out there to go to engineerinnovation.com, which is the website that's attached to the campaign. You can get there from acec.org as well. And you'll see some great testimonials of firm leaders who just talk about what it means for their businesses that this R&D amortization issue is having, I mean, very negative consequences, where it's not just potentially hiring or investing to expand their businesses, but we have some leaders who are even questioning whether it was worth being in business, given the fact that they have this payout that they have to make. So between the editorials that are out there and the work that we're doing to get the message out in the ads, share that with your communities and get it out there to your members of Congress, both in the House and the Senate. And help us expand that message, because it's really important, and we have made some good movement. I mean, we have that situation in Montana, of course, where Senator Tester, he signed on because of an editorial from one of our members that he saw.
Yeah, and I mean, that is just the classic example of how this works and how it can work and how it can be successful. No, I love that, and love the way a lot of the states are using this and pushing that message out. I just saw one of the op-eds from one of our Ohio members, Beth Easterday, posted it on her Facebook page.
Perfect.
Among others. And I've seen that in other states as well. So this is a great way of using that collateral that's been developed in this campaign and continuing to push it out. We're going to be doing a lot more of that, some targeted outreach to lawmakers, particularly in the House, and connecting the dots in terms of where some of these op-eds have been appearing in states, and just making sure that they see it, they understand it, they understand the urgent need for a fix. So like I said, that is probably our biggest priority for 24 is getting this done, getting it done as early as possible. But there's a bunch of other things that are key priorities for 2024. Obviously, we got to finish the appropriations process, the spending packages. There's going to be a vote later this month on a cluster of bills that are subject to a continuing resolution currently, and then a second package early in February, the same thing. We're hearing that they're making progress, House and Senate appropriators, on agreeing to some final numbers. but there's a lot of challenges. I mean, to what extent is, a fix on the southern border going to become the condition before, the spending bills get passed? Obviously, we don't want to see a government shutdown or any interruption to the possibilities of both avoiding that as well as getting an R&D fix through, that sort of thing. So we're going to stay engaged there. It's critical that Congress do its job with respect to funding the critical programs that we care about: transportation, water, energy, all of these things that touch our members is absolutely critical. Got to finish that FAA bill, as I mentioned. And then we've got a number of regulatory initiatives, that immigration one from the administration, our work with AASHTO, our work with the Corps, several other things that are ongoing that we're going to stay focused on. Congress is going to do another water bill this year, the Water Resources Development Act. And they've been doing some preliminary work in 2023. And we think that they're in good shape to move ahead in 2024. That bill has a tradition of good, strong bipartisan support. We hope that that stays in this case. And again, another opportunity for ACEC to move its water agenda forward and look for opportunities to deal with new challenges such as PFAS and other emerging contaminants and just other challenges facing our water and wastewater clients as well as our Corps clients.
And that's where the work with the Army Corps for that new playbook on working with third party, the private sector consultants and working in that close relationship is going to pay off, because the word is that's the Army Corps bill. That's their opportunity to get their specific projects funded. So building on that relationship and then a strong word of bill creates a good business environment for our firms.
Absolutely, and a bunch of other issues. The FTC ban on non-compete agreements that never was finalized. So we're looking for that this year. We engaged pretty heavily on that last year. And a DOT rule that'll affect our DBE firms that we're strongly supportive of. We were hoping that would finalize last fall. It also gets kicked over to 2024. A lot to do. We're going to be busy, and hopefully there's some other opportunities out there in the energy space and elsewhere. But it's also an election year, Jeff.
Yeah, and that's going to take a lot of the oxygen out of the room.
Our window of opportunity may be the first half of the year at best. And before they really kind of switch into campaign mode. I would say, certainly, fortunately for ACEC, kind of switching gears to the political side, we had a great fundraising year in 2023. Best year ever. We're still running the numbers, but, enormous numbers of donors, of firms supporting the political program. I guess, and I have to thank our members, because that just gives us the resources, the political resources we need to win. And, our packet, our political program has always factored into the success of our advocacy program. They really work together hand in glove. This is going to be a contentious election year. We're hearing from lawmakers constantly. I mean, we have for the last year. And so having those political resources to support the good people, to support our friends on both sides of the aisle that are trying to support us on all of these issues that I've talked about and many others. So, we're going to be using that townhouse a great deal. We had a bunch of lawmakers, a couple hundred troop through there in 2023. 2024 is going to be even bigger. We've got the two big party conventions coming up in the summer. ACEC is going to have a presence at both conventions. So I think we're going to have a lot to talk about 2024.
I know, and we're looking at our, of course, spring convention coming up, and we have the EEA awards. I mean, it is going to be a very busy year. It's going to go faster than we expect, and there's a lot to look forward to. And I think that you guys have done a fantastic job of getting momentum going, and we have a lot of things that are on the in the works, and hopefully we can bring home in early 2024 and keep on building from there. So
and then even looking beyond 2024, just a sort of a last thought before we wrap up. We've got major elements of the tax code
that's going to be the
expiring in 2025.
That's the big one.
And so we're going to be spending a lot of time and just laying the groundwork
Mhm.
and being strategic about, working with lawmakers on the tax writing committees and, just making the case for a good outcome in 2025.
But the work that we're doing right now in R&D is
Yeah.
kind of the first shot across the bow
Yeah.
at that.
And I tell you that again, not to harp too heavily on that media campaign, but that made such a difference. I think it taught us a lot about what's possible
Yeah.
in terms of, again, shaping that mindset. So, hey, like I said, we have a lot to talk about in the coming months.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to look forward to it. That's why we're here, right? This is what we do. So, Steve, thanks again. That's a great update. 2024, it's starting off with a bang, and we're going to keep you updated throughout the year. Regular GA update podcasts, kind of what's going on with advocacy, the PAC, and really what's happening in Washington. So stay tuned to Engineering Influence for those shows. And again, this has been Engineering Influence podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And we'll see you next time.